Hello there. Hi, it's me, Camila Rose, and welcome to another video. So we had a little issue with the microphone and the volume, as you might have seen if you watched the first video from our videos that are going to be about the Venus journey through the underworld. Also, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. This is going to be a wonderful next 2.5 months, basically, where we'll talk a lot about Venus, and we'll talk a lot about Jupiter, and we'll talk a lot about like Venus's relationship to Jupiter and Mars and things of that nature as Venus goes through the underworld for the next 2.5 months. So if you haven't, hit that subscribe button, comment down below what's your Venus sign and what house is your Venus in, and we're going to look at the next 4 signs so that way you actually have really nice value and you can enjoy your experience. So Leo, Virgo, Libra, and Scorpio, this video is for you. I have already pulled your cards, so that's finished, and we're going to just take a look at what the cards have to say. And like I mentioned, this is a redo because the volume was just unpleasant. And it's not super sunny outside, so our lighting's not the best, but I will adjust that for us. And we'll get all of this taken care of. Oops. This one. Okay. So let's get started. So as just a brief overview, I do talk about this quite a bit, but today actually, Venus, this is the last day of visibility for the planet Venus before Venus begins its journey into the underworld, where it goes through a moment of transformation where it is reborn as the evening star. And so what we're going to be seeing, at least I think it's going to be the evening star. It's either going to be the evening star or the morning star. But it is going to be hidden behind the sun for 3 days, completely from view. It's blocked out. Its light is blocked out. Everything is blocked out. Venus doesn't produce light. It's not a star. It's a planet. But you won't be able to see it. It'll be completely behind the sun. And during that time, if we think of underworld myths, this would be the time when this individual was completely in the underworld, not journeying down or returning, but in the underworld. If we relate this to the myth of Inanna, this would be when she had entered the 7th gate, had been judged by the judges, and was then hung upon the meat hook, her life lost. And then we go through a rebirthing process because then Ereshkigal, her sister, who is the goddess of the underworld and rules the underworld, is pregnant and is giving birth. And this is the rebirth, the regeneration of the Inanna energy, where she gained some of the areas of power from the underworld because they are gifted to her from Ereshkigal from going through this rebirthing journey. So it is, you go within the underworld, you go deep within your unconscious, and as you're doing this work, you gain wisdom, you gain gifts from that journey, from that ability to be able to go within and become whole once more, and then go through a journey of the ego alienation process of realizing that, there are still other things for you to learn as you're out and about within the world and living your life. And then you go and you return to this journey again. So this is her time of going through the underworld. This is related to the energy from the Venus retrograde because it is a part of the 8-year Venus cycle, and the pentagram, the pentangle that is created by Venus as she goes through her movements through the sky and through the zodiac. So at this time, she's at her Gemini point. Last year, she was at the Leo point, and that was during the retrograde. So during her inferior, and these are all related to her conjunctions to the sun. So during her inferior conjunction is usually when she has a retrograde, and during her superior conjunction is when she is in the underworld for roughly 2.5 to 2 months. So here's what that energy is going to be looking like for you and the archetypes that'll be showing up. So for our Leos, we have the Lovers in reverse. And so with the Lovers in reverse, this is an energy of recognizing that you may have gotten a little bit off your path. You may not be really truly living your life for yourself as you would like to. You may be finding that you've been making a lot of compromises when it comes to how you see yourself and who you see yourself as, and how it is that you would really want to be, who it is that you really want to be. if you are making concessions, and making choices based off of expectations from the outside world, expectations from family, friends, whoever, and not necessarily because these are what you desire, what you want. This is an energy of kind of getting those things back into alignment, especially if there's a part of you that feels like perhaps you can't trust yourself. Perhaps the road that you want to take, you're naive in the way that you're approaching this because you have this childlike wonder about you. And that is a Leo quality. They are the babe riding on the horse in the sun. They are the wiliness and the courage and the strength card in opening up the mouth of the lion, being so in touch with your instincts and within that kind of animal nature of how to care for yourself, that you're able to make really wise choices and decisions based off of that information. But sometimes when we have strong voices in our lives externally, they can come in and present something where we think like, am I making the right choice? Am I making the right decision? We question ourselves and our connection to our instincts, to our intuition. And so for you, Leos, this is a time of coming back to this understanding of who you are and aligning towards your path, especially towards something that is very emotionally engaging for you, something that you're very excited about, something that you've been wanting to follow up with this Knight of Cups. The Knight of Cups is saying that there is something that you want to move towards, your heart wants to move towards. And so you may have been putting that off, or you may have been putting that to the side, or you may have been questioning whether that was the path that you were supposed to be on because of external voices, because of thinking that maybe I need to be doing what society is expecting of me, what my family is expecting of me, what even my, ego tells me is the correct decision to make because it's the one that will keep me safe, but you must trust yourself. You must go within you must trust yourself. And this journey is going to be kind of bringing you face to face this next 2.5 months from April 28th, which is today, the last day of visibility for Venus, to July 10th, which is going to be the first day of visibility when Venus is reborn. You must be able to face yourself and be honest with yourself about what it is that you desire and the path that you need to take to get there. For our Virgos, you actually get, so the Lover's card in reverse is the Gemini card. For our Virgos, you actually get the Sun card, which is Leo's card in reverse. And so in the Sun in reverse is saying that right now there may be a space where you're feeling very disconnected from who you are. You may be feeling your ego maybe have experienced a moment of alienation. So your readings have matched up with this energy because your readings have been very framed in a way where it's like you have been having a lot of opportunities and chances to achieve some really big goals, to redirect things, to restart on kind of the seeds that you have planted, whether that garden just didn't grow in the way that you wanted to. It's like, it's fine. Here's another plot. Here's another chance. Dig it up, restart, right? And the thing is that there seems to kind of be an underlying, and it even shows up here, I was going to say, there seems to be this underlying energy of kind of people who are not being honest with you, people who are not showing up for you, people who don't have your best interest in heart, and they kind of lurk around the periphery of who you are and of your work and of your success and your family and things of that nature. And there seems to have been another moment of like ego alienation that's going on, a disconnect from the self that became very prominent or will become very prominent to you, very clear and apparent to you during this time, because with that Sun card in reverse, you're not getting the recognition, you're not getting the appreciation, you've lost that childlike wonder. It's a moment of growing up and maturing, right? And part of that is coming from this energy of this Seven of Swords. From these experiences where you have been let down, where you have been used, where you haven't been able to trust individuals, you've taken this stance of kind of saying, well, I just need to make sure that I am always prepared for whatever could come forth. I'm always 2 steps ahead. I'm always ahead of the game. And it's this coping mechanism that you've put into place or you've developed or that you're developing in order to make sure that you're never taken advantage of again or that you're in a position of power. But the issue is that when you come from this stance, it makes you defensive. It's a defensive stance. And while it can be an idea of being clever in how you approach things, being clever in how you move and make decisions, and part of that could be that maturity, it is always going to be a balancing act when you go into the underworld and an uncovering. Because it could be part of, you do need to mature, you do need to grow up a bit and maybe not be as trusting Ask more questions, have more conversations, stop rushing into things because you feel the excitement and you feel the excitement from other people, so you don't ask for the details. Is it the understanding that like you need to be a little bit more assertive and a little bit more involved in the decisions and the ongoing of things, especially at the start, so that way you know what's being planted, you know what's happening. So there's kind of a twofold here of not falling into this defensive measure of needing to make sure that you're always in control and you're always ahead of the game, but also knowing that you have to be a little bit wiser. You have to grow up a little bit. And then from there we have a Knight of Pentacles in reverse, because it's kind of a stopping. It's kind of a saying, let's pause, let's slow down. Let's not just rush in and plant new seeds. Let's not just rush in and say, well, this garden didn't work, so let's just go and make a new one. It is an understanding of the process. And I think kind of your core energy as Virgo. And it's funny that I said core energy, because if you look at Virgo and kind of the archetypes that are aligned with Virgo, the Virgin, the assessor, the one who helps and is right before we shift into a new season. And it's important to be able to know, like, do we have all the resources necessary to be successful? And it's like, oh, if we don't, do we need to go maybe gather more, things of that nature. But the core mythology of Core and Persephone is also a great archetype for you to work with and to understand and to become very familiar with, because Core was the name of Persephone before she became the queen of the underworld, and was just more the daughter of Demeter, and how when she didn't really have much of an identity outside of being a daughter, and there's this realm of kind of innocence that becomes attached. You could see it as the son of an innocence that becomes attached to this Core Persephone archetype, because it is this sense of innocence that is maintained regardless of whether that means that you have to lie in order to maintain that innocence, or whether it is maybe you have to do some dubious things, because that is kind of the energy that you embody. And so understanding how you have this nature of innocence, you have this desire to maintain that childlike wonder, that innocence, that role that you play in others' lives, and as you see yourself. And that sometimes you may take dubious measures in order to maintain that, but it also puts you in this defensive state of not wanting to be questioned about how is it that you ended up in the underworld. When they ask, how did you get to the underworld? Whether it was you were snatched from the ground opened up beneath you and you were snatched down and dragged into the underworld by Hades, or whether it is that you decided that you were done just being Core, you were done just being a daughter, you were done just being someone who was in relation to someone else, so you decided to steal away, you decided to go into the underworld. Or whether it was, were you fed the pomegranate seeds, or did you eat the pomegranate seeds? Did you decide with a general knowledge that everyone has that you can't consume things in the underworld? It is the innocence of, how do I present myself? How do I show up? And with an understanding of, I have to find some form of balance to maintain my relationship as daughter, and balance to maintain my relationship as queen, as wife. How do I hold all these different roles and still be able to maintain this ability to have that balance? And that's kind of something I think you're going to be juggling with during this time in the underworld. All right, so on to Libras, because I spent quite a bit of time on Virgos. On to Libras, and if you haven't, get yourself something nice to drink. And stay hydrated, my loves. Okay. So with Libras, we have the Hangman in reverse as well. The Hangman is upright, and so in this case, where the Hangman in reverse would be, or upright would be, feeling a bit stagnant, feeling a bit stuck. The Hangman in reverse has found that enlightenment, has found that wisdom, has found that next step, has figured out what it is that's kind of been keeping them in this space, the understanding of why they were experiencing these blockages, this what I like to call the pregnant pause, that time in between where you need to slow down, where you can't rush, where something is growing, something is developing, and it needs that room to be able to do that successfully. And part of that is around this. I've been looking at the Page of Pentacles and the Ace of Pentacles and how they kind of play out energetically. And I always see kind of the Page of Pentacles as you engaging, you're holding this pentacle. This is a you thing, a you space. And with the Ace of Pentacles, I see this one more as, and make sure we keep ourselves hydrated. Again, hydrate our skin, moisturize our skin. I'm going to put some lotion on. Libras, you see yourself as being able to find support, find external support, find individuals who can come in. You being able to find individuals who come in and can offer support, offer investment. This is a pentacle being handed to you, a pentacle that is coming into a blessing from above, an external blessing that's coming in and saying, hey, I see you. I see the work that you're doing. I understand your vision. I see where you're going, and we get it. We get it. We want to invest. We want to support, right? So that's kind of the energy of this Ace of Pentacles. There's been this maybe feeling of being unsupported, a feeling of not knowing what new direction to go in, a feeling of waiting for the job, waiting for the breakthrough, waiting for the business to take off. And it's just kind of like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And it's been like, sit and wait. Don't run away. Don't avoid. Sit with it. Work with it. Stay in this space. Put in the effort. It's very Saturnian energy, and Saturn is exalted in the sign of Libra. Discipline and hard work and sticking to something, even when it gets really tough, is the payoff for beauty, for joy, for balance, for harmony. And so we see this kind of happening in that this space that you're going through, your time in the underworld, especially with Venus being your ruling planet, Libra. And many of the Libras will be experiencing more of the square. So it'll be an uncomfortable moment of kind of a rebirth. The very last few from 28 degrees to 30 degrees. That's the last few degrees of Libra will be experiencing a conjunction or a opposition. So there'll be a little bit of an easier time. But the majority of Libras will be experiencing the squared energy. And more so towards the end of this time when Venus is coming out of the underworld. And so that rebirthing might feel very tense. But it will be that time of that getting out of that stuck energy, having the understanding of, oh, this is why I had to wait. This is why this took so long. This is why there were just so many pauses, and why it just was so much effort I needed to put into this, and I really needed to stick this out. And with the Page of Wands, we're then seeing that this is a time of not necessarily rushing forward. You're not re-engaging with this energy of passion and fire and creativity, of sensuality and sexuality. You know, it's kind of the very opposite. It is of sitting still. It is of grounding down. It is of finding that stability. It is of resting, finding this space where you can rest and peacefully be in a stasis, in a space of in between, a very liminal. And for Libras, I think sometimes, you know, it can be uncomfortable for us because our scales are trying to balance constantly. So we're kind of constantly dipping from one side to the other. 1 foot always in the conscious and 1 foot always in the unconscious, being able to see more and know more than is available on the surface level. And so that puts us in this weird space often of navigating, having this intuitive hit, this intuitive knowledge and knowing of, okay, well, this is how we get into balance, and then having that balance always thrown off. And so right now it's kind of, you're in that in between, you're in that liminal space. And towards the end of this time of Venus being reborn is when you'll be really getting that enlightenment. You'll really get that knowledge of where it is you need to be going, who it is you need to be connecting with, where it is, how to move forward and get out of this space. All right, so lastly, we have the wonderful Scorpios. And Scorpios, you have the High Priestess in reverse. So this is an energy of turning around and really feeling, again, disconnected. In this case, where the Virgos were disconnected from the ego, you've been feeling a little disconnected from your unconscious, from your shadow, and really understanding what was going on unconsciously. And the interesting thing about this, well, you either felt a little disconnected or you've been plunged completely within the unconscious, and you've been maybe kind of drowning in the unconscious and having a difficult time staying kind of present and in the current space, right? But what's interesting is that as Scorpio, you're the first sign that's in the underworld. You're the sign of the underworld. You're related to Mars and Pluto, the sign of, or the planets of transformation and rebirth and death and all these cycles that we go through in life. And you're more of the life-taking energy of Mars than necessarily the life-giving energy of Mars. You balance out that Martian energy. But when you're kind of placed in this, you're either disconnected from that sense. You need that depth. You need that darkness. You need that time to explore and be able to know from a different standpoint, because that's how you help navigate. That's how you support. That's how you transform. And when you're kind of stuck in this space where you can't transform, or you're stuck in this space where you should be going through the process and coming back and you can't get the doors to open to come back, it leaves you feeling very disconnected. It's a very uncomfortable energy. And again, that's that square energy from this activated for this time for you, or you'll be in the opposition. That's that oppositional pool of Taurus when it is activated from the Venus, and this Venus moves through Taurus. That's that space of like really being pulled into the earth and really being pulled into the space of like your body and being attached to your senses, being attached to what brings you peace and having to really contend with that. And especially when we look at your relationships, the contracts that you made, the connections that you've made, what brings you joy and happiness, the people who are actually on the same page with you can meet you where you are emotionally. And part of that is understanding how you feel in your body. And that although you might want to dive into the depths of, oh my goodness, I can have all these philosophical conversations with this person, and we can go into these, conspiracy theories or metaphysics or the occult and all of these things. We could talk about, our kinks and our vibes and things like that, like the stuff that, money, that the conversations around money and death that no one else wants to have those conversations with. And oh my goodness, I just feel so connected to this person. And there's a blockage. You can't get there. And it's because it's time to be in your body. It's time to realize that what brings you peace and what doesn't. And peace is about finding that emotional harmony. Because although you may be able to have these conversations, although you may be able to see eye to eye, although you may be in this space, are you being emotionally fulfilled? Are you actually being met equally? And part of that is, we have this Queen of Cups coming up. This is my self-care queen, putting herself first, understanding that when her emotions are taken care of, then she is able to meet someone equally. There may have been a discarding of yourself, a discarding of how you feel, pushing away and going into the depths of the underworld and hiding underneath those waters. Still waters run deep, trying to find that stillness and being there instead of coming up to the choppy waters of, okay, like, hey, I need space and time for myself. Or you're stuck in the choppy waters. You're sacrificing yourself to maintain peace and harmony with other people and finding that you are just constantly stressed. Your shoulders are scrunched. Your jaw is clenched. You're not feeling that peace within your body, and that Venus running through Taurus, Venus moving through Taurus, which will create an opposition to my Scorpio individuals, is going to say, hey, this is how we review our contracts. This is how we understand our relationships. This is how we understand how we show up. And it's going to be how centered around knowing how you find peace, releasing that connection, knowing that it is time to be in a space of giving new life and releasing the old life that happened. When you ground into your body, when you get behind the veil, when you leave from behind the veil, if you've been there too long and you come back and you're here physically, you're here and present, is when you'll get the insights, you'll get the wisdom, you'll get the knowledge, and you'll be able to do more of that space of that being in the underworld, but feeling whole, feeling grounded, knowing that you have that oppositional energy that is going to bring you that peace and that sense of rebirth and that stubbornness of what it takes to grow, right? Stepping into that fixed earth energy in a way that functions well for fixed water. So that's going to be our energy that's going to be present for our signs, for our lovely Leo, Virgo, Libra, and Scorpio. If you would like to know how this transit is going to personally impact you, you can order a transit report from me. Link is in the bio, link is in the description, or you can just visit www.theblissinstitute.org. And for our archetypes to work with, we are looking a lot at this energy of the hero. We're looking a lot at this energy of the hero or the heroine. And kind of the ego and the role of the ego and the space of the ego. For Libras, you may be experiencing a little bit more of that wise old man, the wisdom, the wise elder, the witch, the wise old woman. And for our lovely Scorpios, this is that energy of the priestess. And again, it's kind of getting to this space of a moment of wisdom, a moment of insight, a moment of, okay, here's how I go beyond the veil. The mother may also be a present one for you, especially if you had an emotionally distant mother, Scorpio. So the mother and the kind of healing mother wounds could be very helpful for you. And I would take a look at that, Scorpios. So there you go. Thank you so much for watching. Again, hit that subscribe button, comment down below your Venus placement, your Venus house, and I hope you have a wonderful, beautiful time in the underworld with Venus. We'll be doing a lot more videos covering this topic, getting more in depth. So let me know what it is you'd like to know more about this subject. I'll see you later. Have a great one. Bye-bye.